From News on 6, this is breaking news.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Brian Dorman.
I'm Ashley Isbicki. We are bringing you special coverage this afternoon as the funeral for Tulsa Police Sergeant Craig Johnson has just finished at Victory Christian Church. A procession now headed to Floral Haven Cemetery.
We will be staying with the procession all the way till Floral Haven. Of course, a very tough day for our community today. We begin our coverage with News on 6's Craig Day. He was at the funeral this afternoon. Craig?
Well, Brian and Ashley, it was a beautiful service here today for Sergeant Craig Johnson. The minister started things off here at Victory Christian Center with, we're gathered here to celebrate and honor the life of a hero, and they did a beautiful and wonderful job of honoring that hero today. Of course, there are hundreds and hundreds of law enforcement personnel here right now escorting Sergeant Craig Johnson's body. You can hear the helicopter, the Tulsa police helicopter in the air right now. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. There are probably about 700, I would say, police cars from across the state of Oklahoma. We've seen Louisiana, Missouri, Kansas also represented here as well, but hundreds of police officers here to honor the life and impact of Sergeant Craig Johnson. I thought one of the most emotional points of the memorial service here today was when they started a bunch of video, or a video rather, with a bunch of pictures of Craig Johnson throughout his life, but his boys added a picture at the beginning, and it showed a picture of him and his little boys, and it simply said, "We love you, Daddy." A very powerful moment during the memorial service here today. And the kids described their dad, the minister officiated, had talked to the kids, they described their dad as loving, big-hearted, friendly, loved making a difference. And that was one of the beautiful things about this service here today, is that we learned more about his career and his commitment to being a police officer and helping serve others. But we also learned more about Craig Johnson the man, not Sergeant Craig Johnson the police officer, but also Craig Johnson the man, and about his funny sense of humor, about his wit, about his eccentricities, about how he could quote lines from movies that he'd seen years ago. But it continued to go back that he was smart, patient, worked hard, went the extra mile, always put others first, and loved his wife and his children dearly. Now, the family also said to the minister to relay this to everyone. The family says they are overwhelmed by the love and support from people from Tulsa, not just Tulsa, but also nationwide. His supervisor said that Craig Johnson had a big heart and loved helping new recruits learn the ropes. He was a tenacious investigator and always willing to help his fellow officers. Now, the procession that we are showing you right now, it's leaving Victory Christian. The route is going to go north on Lewis to 61st. Then it's going to head east into Broken Arrow. It's going to turn south on 129th East Avenue and end at Floral Haven in Broken Arrow for the graveside services. And of course, people are welcome to line up along the route to show their support. In fact, there are several people right across the street from us who have come here from different states even to show their support for Officer Craig Johnson, for Sergeant Craig Johnson. But a very moving tribute to him today here at Victory Christian Center. News on 6's Emery Bryan joins us right now. And Emery, I'm interested in getting your thoughts, because you had the opportunity of talking to a lot of people who came out here to honor Johnson.
Yeah, and there's even more people further up the route, right in this area. It's been blocked off from traffic, so not as many people came down here because they'd have to walk so far. But there are a lot of people further up and along all 61st Street, and this is about a 10-mile journey over to Floral Haven Cemetery. It's going to take a while, so there is still some time to get there toward the east end of that. But we've seen so many people that came out today that just wanted to pay their respects. I didn't meet a single person that knew him personally, but all of them said they knew people like him, and they were so touched that not just that over what had happened and sympathy for his family, but we heard people saying, you know, this is somebody that didn't just lose his life. Today isn't about losing his life. Today is about someone who gave his life, and they knew going in to being a police officer what can happen. It's a disaster scenario, worst thing. You never want it to happen, but you know going in there's going to be those situations where bad things can happen, and that is in case what happened here. So many people felt a connection to him, a connection to the Tulsa Police Department, because those are folks that are protecting us. And so that's what they were talking about here on the sidelines today as they watched this procession get started, and as they were waiting out here for an hour to let it get started.
And that's what so many people inside the memorial service said too, how much they appreciated his service and just the type of person he was, known for his laughter, and that he improved safety for all of Tulsa. You know, he was instrumental in getting some copper theft legislation through the state legislature, and his supervisor said that, you know, that improves safety for every single person that lives in Tulsa and travels through Tulsa. And he said that each time you go by and you look up and there's a street light that's working, that supervisor hopes that you think of Sergeant Craig Johnson and that you pray for his family. And again, as Emery mentioned, people are lined up along this route to Floral Haven. Let's go to News on 6's Mallory Thomas, who's on 61st Street right now. Mallory, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of people out here with American flags. We're seeing them with the police American flags, with signs that saying we love the police, we heart the blue. We're just seeing everything. I want to step out of the way and show you the crowds that we're seeing here. Earlier in the day, we were driving along 61st, and I was talking with some officers, and they were a little bit worried because they weren't seeing the crowds yet. It was still kind of when it was raining, but man, people have come out in large crowds, large gatherings are out here. We've seen car crowds that are out here, people out in Jeeps further up. That's where those American flags are, up the road that you can see. There's also some biker clubs that are out here. We're seeing families. We're seeing people just on both sides of the street. And like I said, I actually spoke with one man who came here earlier today. He said that he drove in, and he says that he's just proud to see all of these people here.
Driving along here, seeing all the city of Tulsa coming out, the amount of money that was been raised the last 2 days for these two officers, it's amazing what Tulsa's come together and done.
And again, we're just seeing a lot of people out here along the procession route. Some people have actually been asking what's going on, just driving along and then park and come and stand over here and wait to show their respects. So now we'll check in with Brian and Ashley.
Thank you, Mallory. It's incredible to see the amount of support, and gosh, his closest family and friends and family will need that in the coming days. Your heart just hurts for Sergeant Johnson's wife, his two boys, both under the age of 12. It was really difficult to listen to Craig talk about even just those pictures of the boys at the beginning. The community coming together, as Mallory had mentioned, to raise more than $500,000 in just a few hours yesterday, during the day yesterday, for the families of Sergeant Johnson and Officer Arash Zarkashan. Of course, we have to mention Arash. He was with Sergeant Johnson at the time of the shooting. He survived and is continuing to improve at the hospital.
And that, Brian, yesterday's fundraiser was just one of many. There are countless fundraisers happening that have happened over the past week. And again, people continuing to come together. We are taking a look right now at the 10-mile procession to the cemetery, Floral Haven. This is 61st and Sheridan. They will make their way, again, that 10-mile journey to the cemetery. That is where we will find News on 6's Sawyer Bussey. She is live there with what she's seeing. Sawyer?
Ashley, we're right outside of the front gates of Floral Haven, and seeing the amount of people here to honor this man's life is so unbelievable. I want to show you, there are crowds of people all the way from the highway to Floral Haven. I'm going to get out of the way and let Rodney kind of zoom in and show you what's going on right here. Every person I've talked to about Sergeant Johnson says he just wasn't a man who brought a lot of attention to himself. He loved to brag on his boys. He worked really hard. And one of the most powerful testaments to Sergeant Johnson's life is just how far people drove to be here today. We just met a man who's driven 2 days straight from Florida to be here and honor Sergeant Johnson's life. I also spoke to a couple who told me how important it was for them to be here today. They said that it wasn't just about that their hearts are going out to Sergeant Johnson's family, his 2 boys, and his wife. The man that I spoke to says that Sergeant Johnson deserves every bit of respect the community can give him, and being here along the road with his American flag, his fiance, was just his way of showing police officers that his family supports them and the sacrifices they make every day. There was also something he wanted to make sure that Sergeant Johnson's family knew. Take a listen.
Please know in your heart that we love you. We appreciate what he has done for us, for not just us, but for the whole town of Tulsa. And he's an example of a hero.
Now, of course, families are continuing to line up along this route right now. We're going to go ahead and pitch it back to Craig Day.
All right, Sawyer, thank you very much. Tulsa police helicopters continue to fly around the area. Earlier, we showed you many of the law enforcement personnel that were pulling out. Those were all from different agencies. Now, Tulsa Police Department vehicles are pulling out right now to head to Floral Haven and Broken Arrow. You know, there was another very touching moment during the service here today for Sergeant Craig Johnson, and it was a song. It's called Heaven Must Have Needed a Hero, and it is a very, very powerful moment during that worship service. Chief Wendell Franklin also spoke. He said you can take a body away, but not a spirit. He said Craig Johnson is gone from this earth, but his spirit lives on in each and every one of us, and his soul is with his Heavenly Father. He also posed the question, if a city had no law enforcement, where would it be? He said there's no greater or more worthy profession, and people sleep softly because of officers like Craig Johnson. We want to show you more of the procession that's headed toward Broken Arrow. You know, Chief Franklin I also found it interesting. He said in a day and age right now when people are so quick to criticize police officers, to second guess those split-second decisions that officers have to make, you know, claims that officers have too much power, and parents make officers in many cases the bad guy. He said, who would want to take this kind of job? Well, Sergeant Craig Johnson was the type of person with the heart of a servant who did want to take this job and loved his job. And the chief said, may his sacrifice to our cause never be forgotten. May his silly, quirky persona be instilled in our hearts until the coming of our Savior. Very powerful moment of this memorial service. Right now, we're going to go to Mallory Thomas with more of our continuing team coverage. Mallory?
Hey, Craig, we're seeing all of those police cars that are driving down 61st. I'm going to step out of the way to show you. It's very powerful, very moving. Something that I do want to mention is every person that we have talked to today, that we have interviewed, stopped along the route, has been emotional. So this has just been the entire community, the entire state coming together. We actually spoke with, there's a group of motorcyclists that are further down here. We spoke with them. One of them is a police officer from Texas. He said that he just wanted to come up here and show support for Tulsa, show support for the law enforcement community here. We have seen police officers that have stopped, you know, further down, all up and down 61st. Like I said, there is just crowds of people everywhere. You can see there's actually construction workers that are across the street that have stopped. They're taking video. Everyone's got cell phones out trying to get some video of this. And we're going to check back in with Brian and Ashley now. We'll check back in again soon on this procession down here.
All right, Mallory, thank you. And you know, Craig mentioned that this was also a way to learn more about who Sergeant Johnson was as a man, as a father, as a husband. We know that he enjoyed reading books, watching movies, fixing things, including cars. He was a member of Christview Christian Church and, of course, was a training officer and a sergeant who worked hard on so many issues. And this is the first time that we have, as a community, as a Tulsa community, have had to come together to honor the life of a Tulsa police officer in 24 years, Brian.
It was in 1996 that we lost Senior Patrol Officer Dick Hobson Jr. He was shot and killed during a foot chase in an alley, and many of you remember that. In fact, the anniversary of that just happening 24 years ago. And I've been talking with his daughter's husband, and he told me yesterday over the telephone as we were talking, his daughter's name is Jericho, and I was talking to Jericho's husband, and he was telling me that she had prayed for 24 years that her father would be the last Tulsa police officer to be killed on the job. And of course, it's very difficult for them with the anniversary that had just passed, and then to be reliving this right now. Of course, this tragedy reminding that family very much of the loss that they had been dealing with now for 24 years, the loss of Officer Dick Hobson.
And while taking a look at this procession, this video is just so incredible to see. So many of people have been asking what they can do to help if they are not there right now. Hey, how can I help? Well, in lieu of flowers, the family did request memorial donations to be made to the Tulsa Police Memorial or the American Cancer Society. There are also several ongoing fundraisers. An easy one, a gas station. We talked with the owners of Perfect Gas and Food Convenience Store that is at 15th and Harvard, and they are donating 1 cent of every gallon of gas to the families, and you know that will add up quickly. Also tomorrow, if you eat at Rib Crib anytime from 11 to 4, all proceeds this week will go to the Tulsa FOP Benevolence Fund.
Sergeant Johnson's family also asking for donations to be made in lieu of flowers today and in the near future to the Tulsa Police Memorial Fund or even to the American Cancer Society, a request from the family. We know Sergeant Johnson was a member of the police force for 15 years, most recently with the Mingo Valley Division. And Craig had mentioned how instrumental he was when it came to copper theft, and was very passionate about that, and a big problem in our city. In fact, his work actually led to changes in the law when it came to copper theft. And an Oklahoma State representative, we just talked about this earlier this week, Carol Bush, is refiling legislation named for Sergeant Johnson, focusing on policies to help further stop copper theft in our state.
And I believe now we want to check back in with News on 6's Craig Day. Craig?
Well, Ashley, I was just kind of looking over some of the notes I took during the memorial service, and there's so many wonderful things said about Sergeant Craig Johnson, just that he had such a big heart, incredible patience, and you know, that he just loved his family so much and loved the city of Tulsa so much and serving others so much. So it's no surprise that there's such a beautiful tribute here for him today. There are probably a couple hundred more police cars still in line waiting to leave the parking lot here at Victory Christian Center, and that doesn't even count the fire departments that are represented here from all across our area and other parts of Oklahoma as well, all here to honor Sergeant Craig Johnson and pay tribute to him and to honor his family as well. You know, the minister who officiated the service here today said Officer Johnson, Sergeant Johnson, made the community and the world a better place, and quoted scripture saying there's no greater love than to lay down one's life for a friend. And so it's a very moving, very powerful service here at Victory Christian Center today. News on 6's Emery Bryan joins us once again, and I know, Emery, you've been talking to a lot of people who just wanted to come here to show Sergeant Johnson's family that they're loved and they're supported.
That's right, and one lady was telling me that she felt so sorry for his family, but she also felt so sorry for the family of Officer Zarkishan, especially him, because he was terribly injured in this incident, still in the hospital, but unable to see this tribute to this supervisor, this partner on the police force, and see how Tulsa has shown their appreciation for him today. Out along the route, so many people were paying their respects, and we want to show you a little bit of what they had to say. Well, looks like we don't have that sound ready at the moment, but as this procession continues, there's still probably 100 cars back there from Tulsa Police. These are the officers that are going to the gravesite. They had them lined up in specific groups, out of town, folks that were going back to work, and then this is the group, Craig, that is continuing on to the gravesite. But we're almost at the end here. Then you'll see these fire trucks come through, and I'm told now that we do have some sound from people along the route that just wanted to be here and see this and pay their respects.
We wanted to show our respects today for the family and to the Tulsa Police Department. I feel it's really important for the children to witness and see this. It's a sad moment that we're experiencing, but it's important that we're here to show our support.
We're almost done. And as this procession about finishes up here at Victory Christian, remember that it is 10 miles over to Floral Haven. It's going to take a long time for all of these cars to get over there, get in position for the graveside service. But Craig, I mean, I can't imagine a time when the Tulsa Police Department has been so together in one place. I didn't know Tulsa had this many police cars, but they do. And so,
well, and it's wonderful to see too, especially with so much criticism of police officers and law enforcement nationwide. It's refreshing to see the show of support for Tulsa's police department and Sergeant Craig Johnson's family. Another thing that I thought was very touching at the service today was several people brought their children to the memorial service, and I was actually in an overflow room just to give you an indication of how many people were actually here. I know there was some type of head count, but I don't know that number, but it was a lot of people. But we were in an overflow room, and I saw several people with their children there, and they wanted to bring their children there so they can instill in them the importance of recognizing a hero, and that's what's happened here at Victory Christian Center today. Right now we're going to go to News on 6's Sawyer Bussey for more of our live team coverage. Sawyer?
Yeah, Craig, I want to get the camera off me for a second to show you guys what we're seeing right now. This is a powerful, powerful moment. We've got police officers from all over the state right now, hundreds and hundreds of police officers coming right by us right now. We had Tulsa Police first, Broken Arrow, Owasso. We've got Bixby. I've just got chills right now. We have families all along the sides of the road right now, some of them with their hands over their hearts, some of them holding American flags over the road, thanking these police officers. This is how officers show up for each other. And communities all over Green Country have been doing what they can to show their support for officers in their own communities. I was in Broken Arrow last night for a prayer vigil. About 100 people came out. They talked a lot about the importance of law enforcement in the Broken Arrow community. They prayed over their own officers, but also took a lot of time to pray over the families and friends of Sergeant Craig Johnson and Officer Zarkashan. Every officer I talked to said the support they received last night meant the world. Take a listen.
For me, in my 3-decade career as a city manager, I have learned from day one through basically 3 decades is this: a safe city starts and ends with how much you commit to your public safety.
It makes you feel better about yourself and your calling in life. I mean, to a police officer, doing this job is a calling in their life.
Now we've got Oklahoma City right here. We are reaching the end of this group of officers, and we're waiting here to see kind of what group comes next. And many of the Broken Arrow officers that I talked to last night at that vigil are here today showing their support, honoring the life of Sergeant Johnson. Back to you guys.
All right, Sawyer, thank you very much. And if you're just joining us, you're watching News on 6 here at 4 o'clock as we are continuing to cover live coverage of the processional of Sergeant Craig Johnson from Victory Church in Tulsa near 71st and Lewis to Floral Haven Cemetery in Broken Arrow.
Today marking 10 days since he was shot in the line of duty. That happened last Monday early in the morning. And since then, we have seen the community just showing support in every way that it can. As we heard from Mallory, the support extending well beyond Oklahoma. People coming in from Texas, people coming in from Florida to be here today to show their love and support to Sergeant Johnson, Officer Arash Zarkashan, the entire TPD community, his friends and his families. It is obvious that he was so well loved in his community and beyond, Brian.
And Sergeant Johnson, just 45 years old, in fact, just celebrating his birthday. He was born on May 19th, 1975, and just turned 45 years old, leaving behind a wife and 2 young sons. We know their sons are both under the age of 12. It's just such a tragedy, the past 10 days covering this, and you know, it's incredible to see the support of our community. And as Sawyer was just saying, seeing police officers from all over Green Country, Oklahoma City that are here, that are part of this processional that we're seeing right now as the hearse is getting ready here to pull into the cemetery. I believe that that's Sawyer's shot, so we know that Sawyer is there at the cemetery at Floral Haven and Broken Arrow.
And obviously this is pilot Dustin Stone giving us this aerial view, and along with all of the people lined up, you know, I can only imagine, we can feel the emotion just watching this, but being there on the ground has to almost seem surreal. And you know, throughout this we have heard from the governor, we have heard from Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, Tulsa County District Attorney Stephen Kunzweiler, everyone just pouring out their sympathy and their love and their prayers for the family during this just awful time. And we heard the emotion in Craig's voice when he was talking about the ceremony. We heard some of that a little bit while it was broadcasted on Facebook, Brian, in the newsroom. We were listening to it, and it giving chills to us here. So you know how powerful this day is to so many people. And all the folks that have lined up for the 10 miles that it took to get here to the cemetery. So many folks that we've seen along the way there. Lots of American flags, lots of kids holding up signs. This has really impacted our whole community, and we continue to lift up thoughts and prayers to Officer Arash Zarkashan, who is continuing to get better each day. Both officers shot 3 times, and we're thankful that Arash survived his injuries. News on 6's Craig Day was inside the service, joining us now live outside of Victory Christian Church. Craig?
Well, Brian and Ashley, it was a beautiful, beautiful service. The minister started things out here at Victory Christian Center saying we want to celebrate and honor the life of a hero, and they did a wonderful job in doing that. And it was something to see, and you could still see some law enforcement vehicles still pulling out behind me. It'd be hard to count how many law enforcement officers were here, how many vehicles, but it had to have been probably 700 at least, I would guess. But we'll try to work on a count and get that to you at some point. But Craig Johnson was described in many ways. We learned a lot about Craig Johnson, the police officer, the 15-year veteran who was a supervisor, who was always willing to lend a hand and cared deeply about the people that he helped to train, and cared deeply about the citizens of Tulsa. We also learned about Craig Johnson, the man, the husband, the loving husband, the father of 2 little boys. And it was very, very powerful when they started a video of pictures of him throughout his life. And the minister said his sons, young sons, added a picture to the beginning of that to get things started at the last minute. And it was so appropriate because it just showed him and his sons, and I believe his father, and it just said, "We love you, Daddy." And that sums it up, because as one of the speakers here today said, these are more than just police officers. They're human beings that are loved. And so it's a very powerful, very emotional. I get a little choked up just as a dad thinking of that. But it was a wonderful, beautiful service here today. In fact, his supervisor said if he could clone Sergeant Craig Johnson, he would clone him. That's the type of officer he was. He had the heart of a servant and truly wanted to serve the citizens of Tulsa. He also described him as someone with a big heart who loved helping new recruits learn the ropes. He was a tenacious investigator, always willing to help his fellow officers, and he changed the lives of every single Tulsan in one way or another. We'll get to more of that coming up a little bit later, but so many wonderful things said about a very patient, kind man with the heart of a servant. News on 6's Emery Bryan is here and has more of our team coverage. I know, Emery, you've been talking to a lot of folks who've been along this procession route today.
That's right. And so many people wanted to pay their respects. They're still out here watching this procession leave, which we thought was about over when, but there was another parking lot in the back, so hundreds more police officers are coming out. The officers that are going to the graveside are largely en route. These are officers from elsewhere in the state, officers that have to get back to work from other agencies, but still so many officers from all over the state, some other states as well, here to pay their respects. Along the route today, we saw several people who really felt like they had a personal connection. One lady looked back to the time when Gus Spanos, another former Tulsa police officer, was killed years and years ago. I believe it was 24 years ago now. She remembers that day and the emotion of that, and that is why she brought her daughter here today.
To be in the back of the squad car when Gus Spanos was shot and killed in the line of duty, and to be in that funeral procession, I just thought that I needed to have her show the same respect to be here for this one, and not in the back of the squad car, but at least to show, with our flags, and show our boys and women in blue that we love them and we're praying for them, and we know that they're the best that there is.
And so many Tulsa police officers have told me that they have felt Tulsa's prayers and support over these last few days, as people have told them that they support them and they're thinking about them because they know how tight this family is. Police officers have this unique bond.
Oh, yeah.
It's a unique profession, and even though there are hundreds of them and you can't know all of them, they have such a tight connection. It's really amazing.
And it was wonderful today to see how much they are appreciated by so many people. Another very touching moment of the service here at Victory Christian today was a song called Heaven Was Needing a Hero, and that was a very powerful moment as well. We want to go right now to News on 6's Mallory Thomas, who joins us with more on the procession toward the Floral Haven. Mallory?
Craig, something that has just been very emotional over here was the moment when the hearse was going by. It was just absolute silence at 61st and Memorial. And if you know that area, you know it's a very busy intersection. But what I want to show you right now is you can see there's some people who have gotten out of their car and are paying their respects to Sergeant Johnson and to the Tulsa Police Department, to all of the officers who have gone by. It is just, that's the kind of thing that we're seeing down here. A lot of people getting out of their cars and stepping up over to where the procession is. And I actually want to show you right now. We've got Scott here. He is one of many that are here paying their respects. Scott, tell me why this is so important for you to be here.
Well, our club supports law enforcement and veterans, and it's the best way we can show our respect is to be here.
And you said that some of your members are officers as well.
Yes, we have active LE officers, and you know we've got to support our brothers.
And you guys also put all of these flags along here. Why?
Just show our support and our love for these people.
This is what we're seeing everywhere, is just this support and this love for the police department and for our officers. And I wish I could show you all of the people that we're seeing back behind us as well. We've shown you the people up further up 61st. We're just seeing people everywhere as this procession goes through, and we'll check back in with you whenever we can. Mallory Thomas, Oklahoma's Own, News on 6.
All right, Mallory, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Chief Wendell Franklin also spoke at today's memorial service, saying there's no greater, more worthy profession, and people sleep soundly at night because of officers like Craig Johnson. And of course, he also praised him for his work ethic and said he will be remembered by Tulsa police officers. His spirit will be remembered. His sense of humor and quirky personality will be remembered as well. Now, the police chief also recognized Sergeant Craig Johnson in another way. Sergeant Johnson has served for 15 years on the Tulsa Police Department and was mostly in the Mingo Valley Division. He was a supervisor and trainer there most recently. Tulsa Police Chief Wendell Franklin awarded Sergeant Johnson the TPD Purple Heart, and legislation that Sergeant Johnson helped develop that focuses on policies surrounding copper theft is going to be renamed in his memory. He was instrumental and part of a statewide task force, very instrumental in getting that legislation passed and making Tulsa a safer place, because we have a lot more lights on now in this city thanks to Officer Craig Johnson. Now, we want to also update you on Officer Zarkishan, Officer Aresh Zarkishan. He graduated. He's a rookie. He just graduated from the Tulsa Police Academy back in May after applying back in 2019. He had been patrolling by himself for about 6 weeks before he was shot, before this incident. He was shot several times, including in the head, but we're told by doctors that he is improving significantly, doing very, very well, that he was actually able to get his breathing tube taken out earlier this week and was being able to talk to his loved ones as well. So there's an update on Officer Zarkishan as well, but a very powerful, very moving, very touching memorial service here at Victory Christian today. Brian, Ashley.
All right, Craig, thank you so much. And we want to switch gears now and get a latest on our weather forecast as well. Meteorologist Stacia Knight standing by for us. Stacia?
Well, the showers and storms shortly before the procession started quickly moved out of the metro, so that was good. We do have additional thunderstorms kind of up closer to the south side of Lake Eufaula. Those are expected to stay on the east side of town, impacting folks around Claremore. Not severe. The atmosphere here in eastern Oklahoma, especially east of Highway 75, is very worked over today, even though you do see see additional showers, additional thunderstorms. We're not expecting these to get too terribly strong. From Independence down towards Veneta, we do have a batch of thunderstorms there. And then we also have a few down along I-40 in parts of Sequoyah County. There's potential for more development tonight, and for folks that live to the west of Highway 75, where you haven't had too much activity today, well, you could have some stronger storms as the night progresses. Look at the temperature difference here. 70s east of Highway 75, and then much warmer off to the west. 89 in Pawnee, 91 in Stillwater, 87 here in the metro. We should stay around 87 through about 6 o'clock. And again, just a slight chance of still seeing a shower or thunderstorm near the metro. More on dangerous heat and additional storm chances coming up.
All right, Stacia, thank you. We're going to take a little bit of a break here, but on the other side, the United States Supreme Court ruling in favor of the Muskogee Creek Nation on the McGirt versus Oklahoma case. Why the attorneys we talked with say it is the most important decision in our state's history.
And coming up, we have additional chances for showers and storms over the next several days. I'll walk you through those chances and when dangerous heat builds in even more, and sticks with us for a while.
And the power of prayer. Little Trey Elliott is ramping up his prayer efforts in response to the shooting death of Sergeant Craig Johnson. Trey is here with us right now with his mom. I'll chat with them next. He stole our hearts praying over Tulsa police officers, and now he is doing even more to help the force during this difficult time. Trey Elliott is live here in our studio this afternoon with his mom, Brittany. We are so excited to have you both in person, of course, today. Just a tough day for our community and a somber day. But what you have been doing, Trey, is certainly lifting up the spirits of our police officers here in Tulsa. For people who haven't met you or know your story, Trey, tell us about yourself. How old are you?
I am 7.5.
You are 7.5, and I got a little secret that you're pretty smart, because at 7.5, what grade are you going into?
Fourth.
Fourth grade. You're supposed to be going into the second grade. So not only do you have a big heart, you've got a big brain too. And I'm sure your mom is very proud. In fact, Brittany, I know that you are very proud of your son. This all started with him praying over Tulsa police officers. And Trey, tell us, what departments have you prayed with so far? Tulsa police?
Downtown, Mingo.
Mingo Valley?
All the divisions.
Yeah.
You've prayed with Rogers County?
Yeah.
Jinx?
Yeah.
Some Broken Arrow?
Yeah.
How many officers do you think you've prayed over at this point?
A lot.
A lot? What do you think, Mom?
As of this morning, 237 Tulsa.
Almost 237 Tulsa police officers. What kind of things do you pray for, Trey?
For protection.
Mm-hmm. For protection. Why do you think it's so important to do that?
Because in some tough times.
And some tough times right now. They certainly are, and it's been even more difficult, of course, with the shootings of Sergeant Johnson and Officer Zarkashan. So what have you been doing to help since that? I know that's hard probably for a 7-year-old to understand, but you clearly do. What have you been doing to help?
I've been praying.
You had a prayer vigil?
Yeah, a few prayer vigils, not just one.
Where at?
He organized the one at Mingo Valley last Monday. There was about 500 people that came. Wow. And then he's helped with a few others, and he is going to be helping with the motorcycle ride next weekend.
Are you excited to help with that, Trey?
Yeah.
How do you feel knowing that you're making such a big difference for so many people, and you're so young?
I just feel awesome.
You just feel awesome. You've gotten kind of used to it at this point, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Scientist.
Scientist. You don't want to be a police officer? No.
Maybe.
Maybe. You've got plenty of time to figure that out. Brittany, we talked here at our 4 o'clock show a few weeks back. How much, I mean, obviously you were proud of Trey then, but now, as he continues to rise to the occasion and make such a big difference, how do you feel?
I'm really proud of him. So obviously all this is really tough, so to see him still want to keep doing it is really special to me, and it's getting to talk with officers and their families, and how much he means to them is really, really important.
We are almost out of time, but tell me real quick about this motorcycle ride that you guys are Trey organized?
Trey didn't organize it. Trey was asked to be their guest. Okay. So there's a motorcycle ride on the 25th, and it's $20, I think, for riders and $10 for passengers, and the money goes to the families.
Wonderful. Well, you guys are making such a big difference. Trey, thank you for coming on, and I know you will continue to do what you can through the power of prayer, right, buddy? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, I believe I will send it back to you, Brian.
All right, little guy with the biggest heart there. Glad to have him in studio today. To the weather we go with Stacia. Stacia, it's been busy for you today.
We've had quite a bit of activity through the morning hours and even into some of the afternoon. Now in the metro, things are quiet, and so that's good with the graveside service going on for Sergeant Johnson. Then up to the north, we have a couple showers, couple thunderstorms that are trying to push towards the Claremore area. In fact, one knocking on the door in Claremore on the west side of town here. These are on the stronger side. You're going to have some heavy rain, maybe a lightning strike here or there. So just let these pass by before you head outside. And if you're going to be doing any outdoor activities, just wait, let these move on by. So Claremore, heavy thunderstorm overhead now. Choteau has a little bit of rain to the north along the Pryor area. And up to the north, we also have that line of showers and thunderstorms that extends from Independence, pretty much central Montgomery County, back into parts of Labette County near Edna, and then down to the southeast, just north of Veneta there and south of Welch. So kind of a narrow band of rain and thunderstorms. Then to the south, what we had in parts of Sequoia County, this continues to weaken and fizzle out. You maybe have some additional showers and thunderstorms trying to swing through parts of northern LaFleur County, but that's about it. I want to show you our future track. This takes what's actually happening on radar and extends it out an hour. And you can see by almost 5:30 that we'll have some showers and thunderstorms along Highway 412 from Catoosa out towards Choteau. That's the batch that's near Claremore now. We're still going to have that narrow line of showers and storms from Independence still around Edna, and then that would extend even back towards the Grove area. So this doesn't move too much up to the far northeast. That's producing more rain, and really the northeastern quadrant of the state today, really northeast of Tulsa, they've picked up the most rainfall. And that's helped with drought conditions because they definitely needed it. At 5 o'clock, Trav's going to get into more on the drought conditions. Now downtown Tulsa, looking out to the west, we've had a few rays of sunshine. Temperatures have been able to get into the mid to upper 80s, about 87 here in Tulsa. It's cooler to the east and hotter to the west, and it's all because of the showers and storms. Now we can't rule out additional development later tonight. There's enough energy around and what we call an outflow boundary. That outflow boundary would be kind of the focal point for additional storms firing up. Right now, the boundary is out to the west, closer to Oklahoma City, and then also down to the south across parts of southeastern Oklahoma. If we can get thunderstorms to develop and even up towards maybe the Wichita area tonight, those could sink back into the area. The strongest potential and the highest potential for stronger storms tonight would be west of Highway 75, where again, you guys have not had a lot of activity today like folks off to the east. So what we're going to do is just include a slight chance for showers and storms overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. It's hard to tell exactly when the chances for thunderstorms winds down tomorrow. We still have northwest flow aloft, and that can be very tricky. It's hard to time down exactly when those batches of energy come in and produce showers and storms. So we just have to constantly be watching while under northwest flow. Again, the atmosphere is worked over pretty much east of Highway 75 now, so we're not too concerned about getting severe thunderstorms east of 75. It's more out to the west, and that will continue through tonight, maybe even into early tomorrow morning. On future view here, for the most part, quieting down this evening before, again, another round of thunderstorms are possible. What we're seeing pretty consistent in data is maybe some development up to the north around Bartlesville back over towards Pawhuska about 10 o'clock tonight. And then those should weaken. We'll have a few scattered showers, few rumbles of thunder, Tulsa north in the morning, and possibly a cluster that then dives to the south out to the west through the mid to late morning hours tomorrow. That could bring in some gusty winds. Tomorrow afternoon, isolated chances for a shower or thunderstorm. Upper 90s will be possible. And of course, the heat index will be above 100. Once the northwest flow is done with us, that'll be about Sunday, Monday time frame. Then we have a ridge of high pressure that sets in, and it gets miserably hot from there. So our highs will be in the triple digits for a lot of next week. Our heat index values could get close to about 110. It'll be dangerous heat. Take a look at the 7-day planner. Our rainstorm chances are pretty much through the first half of the weekend. And then after that, the heat is on. Oh, it's a hot stretch. We'll talk more about it coming up.
All right, Stacia, thank you. Well, it was a big day for 10 Tulsans who became United States citizens today. But one of the Immigration Service workers said it was an emotional experience. The city of Tulsa welcomed a group of people into citizenship today as naturalization ceremonies resume. 10 new citizens representing 4 different countries gave their oath of allegiance to the U.S. in a ceremony this afternoon. The ceremonies had been on hold during the pandemic, but have been allowed to continue now. The official who conducted the ceremony says it's the best part of his job.
It's always a bit of an emotional experience to stand in front of people, and when you're done swearing them in, they're a United States citizen with all of the rights and privileges and responsibilities that go with that.
Those taking their oaths were allowed one guest to accompany them into council chambers. The others had to wait outside.
News on 6 is honoring high school seniors across Green Country. Today's senior is Aaron. Aaron is graduating from Berry Hill High School. If you'd like to salute a senior you know, you can submit their pictures at newson6.com/seniors. It is Therapy Thursday. Dr. Brenda Lloyd-Jones is standing by to answer your questions about hosting family from out of town and grudges with managers at work.
And the U.S. Supreme Court rules in favor of the Muskogee Creek Nation on the McGritt versus Oklahoma case. What local attorneys have to say right after this break.
This is Oklahoma's own News on 6 at 4.
In a landmark decision, the United States Supreme Court ruled against the state of Oklahoma today. Thank you for staying with us this afternoon. I'm Brian Dorman.
I'm Ashley Isbicki. News on 6's Tevis Hillis talked with an Oklahoma attorney about the impact that this could have across the state.
I spoke to an attorney today who says this is the most important ruling in Oklahoma history. Jim C. McGirt was convicted of rape in the state court in 1997. He received a life sentence, but McGirt challenged the sentence, saying the state didn't have the authority to convict him because the crimes occurred on tribal land. Today, the Supreme Court agreed in a 5-4 opinion. Justices said Congress never disestablished the eastern portion of Native American reservations promised the 5 civilized tribes, meaning that the land is still part of the reservation. The ruling now calls into question who now governs crimes committed by Native Americans against Native Americans on tribal land.
It was committed today, let's say, in the Creek Nation, then ordinarily the OSBI or the local police would be called. Now, based on this decision, I'm assuming the FBI is going to have to be called.
As this unfolds, stick with the News on 6 app and News on 6 website for more information on the ruling. In Oklahoma City newsroom, Tevis Hillis, Oklahoma's own News on 6.
And Tulsa Mayor G.T. Bynum released a statement following the ruling. He says the decision will bring up further debates of jurisdiction and authority, but that he is grateful the decision came about when Tulsa has a good working relationship with the Creek Nation. Mayor Bynum also says he is committed to working with Principal Chief David Hill to address any issues that arise. You can read the full statement on our News on 6 app.
The state of Oklahoma, Muskogee Creek, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole Nations releasing a joint statement today following the ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court, saying in part, the nations and state are committed to ensuring that Jim C. McGirt, Patrick Murphy, and all other offenders face justice for the crimes for which they are accused. We have a shared commitment to maintaining public safety and long-term economic prosperity for the nations and Oklahoma.
From the Bob Mills Weather Center, Oklahoma weather expert, Stacia Knight.
Trying to get out the door and walk the dogs this afternoon. Some areas will still maybe have a sprinkle, shower, or even a thunderstorm nearby. Most of that is going to be east of Highway 75 through the afternoon and early evening, and we can see then more development as we go into later tonight. So we're still going to keep watch for showers and storms tonight. By 5 o'clock, temperatures are still going to stay in the metro about 86 to 87, and by 7 p.m. we should be about 85, so not much of a drop there. Sunsets at 8:43 tonight. Our heat index feels like 90. It's not too hot, but it is on the humid side. Folks, it picked up rain today, mostly northeast of Tulsa here. You've had a couple spots that have picked up over 2 inches in the last 24 hours. Nowata, Talala being some of those areas. Down to the south, not as much, but you picked up a little bit from Salisab, pretty much all the way down to the south and in parts of southeastern Oklahoma. If you live west of 75, you missed out on a lot today, but your chances are not out of the running just yet for additional showers and storms going forward. Temperatures right now 77 in Pryor, much cooler on the east side, 86 in downtown, and then 93 out at Pogue Airport in Sand Springs. We'll talk about that dangerous heat building in next week coming up. Now to your traffic alert, I do have a couple things to show you. Now remember that the funeral procession still going on and is winding down here soon, but roads are blocked. Lewis from 71st up to 61st, and then 61st from Lewis all the way over underneath 169. And traffic on 169 is very, very slow, both north and southbound. For southbound traffic, it's 41st all the way down to the 61st Street exit. And then for northbound traffic, you're slowing down by 81st Street up to about 61st. And again, that is for the funeral procession today. So extra time on the roadways in those areas. Other than that, things are moving fine. Drive times 18 minutes to Owasso, 23 out to Claremore, and 13 to Lynn Lane on the BA.
All right, still ahead there, your questions, and Dr. Brenda Lloyd-Jones has the answers. Therapy Thursday coming up here at 4.
Your Oklahoma Ford dealers and News on 6 are bringing Oklahoma together and lending a hand. This is your cue to text for your chance to win a $100 gift certificate to Abco Party Rentals. Plus, every winner gets a chance to win a new 2020 Ford Escape. Text PARTY to 79640.
All right, for the first time in a while, we had a lot of rain come through earlier, cooling things off, but that didn't exactly last too long.
Yeah, and only in Oklahoma can it rain like that. And then as I was leaving, folks were gathering by the swimming pool because the sun was out and it was already warm again.
Yes, well, it was only for some folks. Now it's still very hot and very humid out to the west of Tulsa, but east it feels fantastic. And the sunshine did come out here in the metro, so folks are taking advantage now of the drier conditions around Tulsa. We still have some scattered showers and thunderstorms going on, mainly east of Highway 75. Narrow batch of thunderstorms from Independence all the way down towards the Welch area, just north of Veneta. A couple spotty showers now that have just moved southeast of Claremore. Those thunderstorms have pretty much fizzled out on us. A couple around Tahlequah that extend back into Adair County. And then also we have a cluster of showers and storms that's moving out of parts of Sequoia County and LaFleur into Arkansas. Not much else has developed as of now, but we are keeping watch because there's potential for more thunderstorms maybe later tonight and through some of tomorrow morning. Now we can't rule out also those thunderstorms being on the stronger side, especially if they are out to the west where your atmosphere really hasn't been touched too much by showers and storms, and you still have quite a bit of energy for those storms to work with. Here in the metro, we're going to keep just a very isolated chance, about 10% through this evening. Then going into tonight, our future view models are pretty consistent in showing maybe some thunderstorms develop just north of Tulsa about 9, 10, 11 o'clock tonight. Those should not be too terribly strong, but we'll keep watch. So for temperatures, 87 now, staying around 87 through 5 o'clock, still at 85 by 7 p.m. Temperature-wise, we're good. It's on the humid side. We'll drop to about 81 by 9 p.m. On future view here, I'll show you once again kind of what we're expecting. Additional showers, additional thunderstorms are possible tonight. Couple maybe try to bubble up towards Bartlesville, back to Pahuska, maybe even near Coffeyville. We'll keep the main zone still up in southeastern Kansas, but if anything develops out in western Oklahoma from now through this evening and into tonight, or even out in parts of south central Kansas, that could make a run for us overnight, and those could be on the stronger side. So we're just going to have to watch the area. It's northwest flow. If there's enough energy around to pop up a shower or thunderstorm, we have to keep watch pretty closely. Now by 7 a.m., notice that there's a little bit more coverage for showers and some thunderstorms. Nothing too heavy yet. A lot of that staying from Tulsa to the north, but a complex of thunderstorms could drop in then by mid to late morning. It's out to the west of Tulsa. These could bring in some strong wind gusts. About the noon hour, could be just on the west side of Tulsa, extending from Pawnee down to Okemah. Then that fizzles out in the afternoon. It's just isolated chances. Temperatures will warm up into the mid to upper 90s, and heat index could get up to about 106 to 107 in some locations. Northwest flow stays with us through the weekend, so the next thunderstorm complex to come in will be early Saturday morning. 10% chance here. This complex most likely staying just up to our northeast, but if it ends up any farther west, that would then put Coffeyville, Veneta, Grove into the running for that thunderstorm complex. So we'll watch that too. That is Saturday morning, a muggy start to of the day. Could have a showers and thunderstorms on the western edge of that complex swing through Grand Lake about 10 o'clock Saturday morning, then isolated in the afternoon. But on Saturday, any afternoon thunderstorms that pop up could be strong to potentially severe with damaging winds, hail, heavy rain, and of course frequent lightning and thunder. So just be watching. Temperatures will be in probably the upper 90s, near 100 for a lot of us Saturday afternoon. So, it's not going to be too pleasant. And we're going to be seeing additional triple-digit highs headed into next week. Tomorrow, 69 at 8 o'clock in the morning, when we'll bump it up to the mid to upper 90s tomorrow afternoon. Slight chance, again, very isolated tomorrow afternoon, better chances in the morning hours. Then we head into our weekend. We'll keep rain, thunderstorms possible through Saturday, Sunday. Then the triple digits are on from there. This is because a ridge of high pressure will sit on top of us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Highs here in the metro anywhere from 102 to 104. That will be common across our area. Now you factor in the dew points, and that's where it's going to feel like it's possibly 110 to 113, 114 maybe each day. So that is a stretch of very, very dangerous heat that Trav will talk more about. He's going to make a few more updates to the forecast, and he'll extend the 7-day planner to the 9-day at 5 o'clock.
Still ahead, it is Therapy Thursday. Dr. Brenda Lloyd-Jones will answer your questions about hosting family from out of town and how to repair a fragile relationship with a manager at work.
Then at 5, we'll have much more as the community remembers Tulsa Police Sergeant Craig Johnson, how the fallen officer is being honored as he was laid to rest today. And more parents are looking to homeschool their kids as COVID-19 spreads. Hear from one local mom who is putting her own education on hold to teach her children.
It is Therapy Thursday, a day where we answer your questions with the help of our friend, Dr. Brenda Lloyd-Jones from the University of Oklahoma. Brenda, always great to see you on a Thursday afternoon. How are you?
I am well. Thank you, Brian. How about you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. We have some great questions today. I'm a little nervous for Vicky's. We're going to start with hers. Vicky says we have family visiting from out of town this week. I would like to host them at the house. My husband would like for them to stay in a hotel. Should we just flip a coin instead of arguing over it?
Well, that flipping a coin sounds like a good idea, but we wouldn't want Vicky to miss out having some communication time with her husband. Actually, they should communicate and perhaps have a sit down and learn why her husband wants to host the family at a hotel, listen calmly, no interruptions, and then voice why she would rather host them at home. And if they can't come to consensus or agreement, then there's another option. Ask the guests, what would they prefer? And once you do that, however, you are locked into their preference. But you may find out that they prefer to stay at the hotel, or they prefer to stay at your home. But either way, I think it's important to use the time to communicate and then to find a way by asking them what their preference might be. If they happen to say that they have no preference, then it's time to flip that coin.
All right, Brenda, thanks. Well, Tanya writes in with a workplace question. She said, I had a falling out with a manager recently, and he continues to hold a grudge towards me in the office. I've tried everything to be respectful since our disagreement, but it seems like he's not letting it go. I keep getting talked down to, more work put on my plate, and called in early. How can I fix this?
You know what it sounds like is passive-aggressive behavior. But Brian, sometimes managers are just not aware of what they are saying or how they are coming across to others. So this is an appropriate time to seek a meeting with the manager and really discuss your observations, certainly find out what his point of view is, and ask, how can you fix this incident, or how can you fix this conflict? And sometimes it's uncomfortable talking with our bosses because it can seem intimidating or threatening. So you might consider emailing a message. And don't forget about the Human Resources Department. They have people on staff who are experts at finding ways to help employees resolve conflicts. They can mediate the situation and hopefully bring resolve. So here's the heart of the matter. You spend an inordinate amount of time at work. So it's important to create an environment that's not only productive, but it's also pleasant.
All right, great advice as always, Brenda. Thank you so much. And if you're watching right now and you have a question that you would like for us to consider next Thursday, all you have to do is send in a quick email. You can do it right now. The email address on your screen, therapythursday@griffin.news.
All right, coming up, as a TPD officer, Arash Zarkashan, recovers in the hospital, we'll show you how a local restaurant is lending a hand to support his family. And it looks like we're going to take a look at that
in Tulsa
now.
And we continue to pray for his family and the recovery of Officer Arash Zarkashan. Oklahomans came together from all walks of life yesterday, and we ended up raising over $500,000 for the families of those two officers. I heard stories of so many Tulsans who stepped up to help their families, and one of the stories I heard was a guy that came through the line that was driving a garbage truck. This guy said he didn't have much money, but he wanted to support the officers in Tulsa, so he said he gave his money for breakfast and his money for lunch, and that just is an example of what Oklahomans do when we have community members and people in need. So he said he gave his money for breakfast and his money for lunch, and that just is an example of what Oklahomans do when we have community members and people in need. So I just we need to come together and put aside any differences. We need to approach our fight against COVID through the same lens, not as something to divide us, but as a common enemy to rally against together. We are now 77 days into our reopening phase, and we're 39 days into phase 3, our fully reopening. Since we reopened, 72% of our cases have been in those younger than the age of 50. In those 10,000 cases, there have been just 6 deaths. And I don't want to minimize any deaths, but just want to continue to give the transparent data to Oklahomans. That means a death rate under the age of 50 of 0.06%. While our cases and hospitalizations have been increasing the past few weeks, we are watching this information really closely and carefully. And we are managing our capacity. We still have the capacity of 5,000 COVID beds to be able to access throughout our state. And for example, we had 560 was our peak in hospitalizations on March 30th, 560. The day we started reopening on April 24th, we had 306 people in the hospital being treated for COVID. We have had almost 15,000 new cases since we started reopening on April 24th, 15,000 new cases, but our hospitalizations have only gone up 181. So today we have a total of 487 people in the hospital across the state of Oklahoma, and like I said, we have capacity for 5,000. However, our fight is not over. In order to protect the health and lives of Oklahomans and continue to mitigate the impacts to our economy, we need all Oklahomans to do their part. Last week, I directed the Oklahoma Health Department to develop a color-coded system so Oklahomans could continue to have transparent access to data in their communities. We know we will continue to see new cases of COVID-19, and this is going to be our new normal for the foreseeable future. This system, however, will show Oklahomans how to deal with this virus on a prolonged basis. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Fry to give us an update. Commissioner Fry?
Thank you, Governor. In the beginning, Oklahomans came together and focused on delaying and flattening the curve in order to allow us to increase our capacity and not overwhelm our healthcare system. During this time, a very robust healthcare surge plan was put into place, which included increasing hospital capacity, our stockpile of ventilators and PPE, and other critical resources needed to protect Oklahomans. Oklahomans worked together and followed the recommended guidelines, which allowed us to move into a phased reopening while carefully monitoring our data daily. As we've all known, with reopening would come increased cases, and we're certainly seeing this now. As the governor has said many times, the virus is still here. With these increased cases, we're learning every day how to live and navigate within this new normal. We must balance our physical, mental, and economic well-being. We must stay vigilant and prepared, and importantly, be aware that guidance will change as science progresses in how to deal with this virus. We must understand that with this increased socialization comes an increased risk of spread, and this is why personal responsibility is the key to stopping this virus. Our goal remains to continue to work closely with Oklahomans to continue expanding testing capacity, reporting transparent data, and informing the public as risks evolve. We encourage people to follow the CDC guidelines set forth. We ask our most vulnerable populations to stay safer at home when they're in the situations that needs to occur. Before going out or attending events, we should all ask ourselves 3 questions. Where are we? Who are we? And what are we thinking about doing? We must all engage in good individual and collective choices. We are part of our communities, Oklahoma, and our nation, and we must make choices that protect all of us, especially our most vulnerable population. Our public health professionals are working around the clock to identify cases and hotspots and responding with increased testing and support in those areas as needed. We're proud to announce today the launch of our COVID-19 risk assessment model. These levels are based on publicly available, critically important data and provide practical, actionable information to guide behaviors and mitigate spread. It's a tiered colored system, similar to that of a weather warning system that communicates risk level and information at a county level. The intent of this alert system is to protect health and lives while enabling social and economic activity to resume in the different phases of the pandemic. It allows for additional information to empower citizens to make wise choices for themselves and their family. This tool will be also used for local leaders to guide their communities as they see fit. It'll be updated weekly at coronavirus.health.gov. And it's based on a tiered system that has triggers based off of percent of numbers per 100,000, and it's a 7-day rolling average to get that information. Governor?
Thank you, Commissioner. As I said earlier, I'm calling on all Oklahomans to do their part to slow the spread of this virus, protect our friends and our neighbors. As your governor, I'm going to protect our freedoms as Oklahomans, but I need your help in this. Take the personal responsibility to protect yourselves, your family, and our most vulnerable. Continue to wash your hands frequently, stay home when you're sick, maintain physical distances, and consider wearing a mask in public when maintaining physical distance is not possible. Oklahomans did a really good job back in April to flatten this curve. March and April, we issued 25 different executive orders and we did a really good job of flattening the curve. We need to continue to take this very seriously to protect our lives and our livelihoods. I also want to update you on where we are with the unemployment claims in our state. We are months and months ahead of other states. We've been fully open now for the past 39 days, and we started our reopening plan 77 days ago. And we're starting to see some really positive trends in our data. Last week, initial unemployment claims in our state fell to the lowest levels since March. I know some Oklahomans are still hurting, and my heart goes out to them. The staff at OESC has been working long hours, helping hundreds of Oklahomans get their claims processed. They've made tremendous progress in this. And at this time, I'd like to invite Shelley Zumwalt, our interim executive director of OESC, to give us an update. Director.
Thank you, Governor. And thank you for allowing me to provide an update on OESC. As many of you know, we've had a really busy week. We've been serving hundreds, if not thousands, of people at our events that we've had in Midwest City at the Reed Center. We've had more than 500 people each day attend the events, and we've served over 3,000 claimants while making safety for those who attend a top priority. Guests who wish to see a claims agent had their temperature taken at the door, were screened for exposure to COVID-19 before they entered, and were asked to wear a mask at the event. Some of the reasons why people came to the events ranged from answering one or more questions in the weekly attestation wrong, or providing identification to remove a fraud stop on their claim. Others had never received their way to go cards from our vendor Conduit, and we required Conduit to be on site at these events to help these claimants. They provided overnight tracking for the claimants that arrived there and made sure that they got their cards in their mailboxes when they applied. We also saw many people who did not have strong computer skills, and others who said it was their first time to ever work on a computer. These are significant issues that impede a person's ability to find success when filing for unemployment, and something that the agency is actively working with OMES to identify possible solutions to, as most of the application and the weekly attestations are online and require the applicant to successfully navigate the system. Another benefit to seeing thousands of people at these claims events is we're also freeing up the phone lines so other claimants who can't attend the events in person can have an easier time getting to speak with a call center agent. By eliminating 3,000 people from the call center queue, we're allowing others to find success with their claims, since we've moved all Tier 2 agents to Tier 1, and we now essentially just have...
If you are just now joining us, you're watching News on 6 at 5. That was Governor Kevin Stitt and his coronavirus task force giving us an update on the state's current response to COVID-19. If you want to continue watching this, we do have you covered on our News on 6 app. We'll have more on COVID-19 coming up.
But first, a fallen Tulsa police officer laid to rest. Today, hundreds from across the state gathered to honor and remember the life and legacy of Sergeant Craig Johnson. Johnson was one of 2 officers shot during a traffic stop last week. He was shot 3 times and died from his injuries in the hospital. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'm Brian Dorman. Craig will join us here in just a moment.
I'm Ashley Isbicki in for Lori Fulbright tonight. We have several crews covering how Sergeant Johnson was honored today. We begin with News on 6's Craig Day. He is live near Victory Church. Craig.
Ashley and Brian, it was a beautiful memorial service for Sergeant Craig Johnson. Very powerful and very touching. We learned a lot about not just the police officer who served Tulsa for 15 years, but the dad, the husband, the man, and the things that made him so special and so unique. Loving, big-hearted, kind, friendly, hardworking. Those are just some of the words used today to describe him. People from all over Oklahoma and several surrounding states showed up here at Victory Christian to show their respects to Officer Johnson, to Sergeant Craig Johnson. And News on 6's Emery Bryan joins us with more of our live team coverage. And Emery, you talked to several people and they just wanted to be here, right?
That's right. You know, and they weren't sure how long they'd have to wait, whether it'd be sunny or rainy, but they were here. They started arriving about the time time that the funeral service started, because that's when traffic cleared up a little bit. Many of them waited out here for a couple of hours for the service to end, and then when that procession started, they stood for the duration of that procession. Hundreds of police officers, of course, from all over Oklahoma were here, some from other states as well, along with people who stood on the sidewalks to watch this procession and help honor this family. They didn't know Sergeant Craig Johnson. Some said they didn't know an officer at all, but they wanted to be here to show their support.
We're here to honor the police officer who died, and we brought we got some of the American flags to wave, and we wanted to be nice and honor him and his family. I mean, me and my brother and my grandma made notes for him and his family.
A lot of children along this route brought here by their parents who thought this was such a historic event, such a meaningful event, and so powerful that they wanted their children to see it. You know, you don't see that very often. But
yeah, and I saw children inside the memorial service, and it's parents who want to teach them how important it is to honor our heroes and to honor our police officers. You know, you and I, Emery, have been speculating throughout the day today how many law enforcement vehicles were here at Victory Christian. I asked a Tulsa police officer about that. He estimates 2,000, because they were parked not just here in front of the church, but behind the church as well. That counts motorcycles, police officers, firefighters, all of that, but 2,000 vehicles. And hundreds of people lined along the route to the cemetery from Victory Christian over into Broken Arrow. News on 6's Mallory Thomas continues our team coverage. Mallory?
Craig, it looks very different here now than it did just an hour ago. As people were lining the street here, it was just complete silence here, and that was something that stood out to me, was this silence as Sergeant Craig Johnson was brought down 61st. It was just absolute silence. I mean, you could hear a pin drop just in this busy intersection. There were cars that stopped at the intersection, and people got out of their cars to pay their respects. I spoke with people who drove in from several hours away for the procession to show their love and support for the Tulsa Police Department, Sergeant Craig Johnson, and Arash Zarkashan.
In support of Sergeant Johnson. I believe what happened was a tragedy. I believe that it shouldn't happen. And so to back our brothers in blue, which I am an active law enforcement officer, I came up here to support everybody that wears a uniform.
And something that really stood out to me was police had this blocked off for the procession, and there were cars that were stopped, lined up along 61st and Memorial. I only saw one car that got out of that line, made a U-turn, and turned around. Everyone else waited their time, waited for the procession to pass. It was just very moving, a lot of emotions down here at 61st and Memorial. Reporting live, Mallory Thomas, Oklahoma's own News on 6.
Mallory, thank you very much for that report. Sergeant Craig Johnson was a 15-year veteran of the Tulsa Police Department. Not only was he a sergeant, but also a training officer and supervisor at TPD's Mingo Valley Division, where he was known for his laughter and his sense of humor. Legislation will be named in his honor in the upcoming session because he was instrumental in preventing copper theft in Oklahoma. He's part of a statewide coalition on that. His supervisor said, in fact, that many people, each time they drive through Tulsa, when they look up at the lights, they should thank Sergeant Johnson and pray for his family, because those lights are on to a great degree because of the work that he did, and it makes people in Tulsa a lot safer. Again, he leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Chief Franklin said today, may his sacrifice and our cause never be forgotten. We will have much more for you coming up later this evening, tonight at 6. Now we're going to check in with Travis Meyer with the latest on our weather. Travis?
All right, thank you, Craig. And the funeral procession and everything else associated with that today just barely missed most of the heavy rains. Quick look at what's going on right now. Most of the rain is still off to the east, and that's where it spent most of the daytime hours, and that has been a blessing for those who have missed out on rain. We've seen up to near 2 inches of rain from Bartlesville extending on into Nowata County and also into Rogers County. We'll talk more about that later, but you get the general idea. A record amount of rainfall fell in Fort Smith today as well. Temperatures much cooler where the rain is. 73 right now around Grand Lake. We're sitting at 88 in Tulsa and 92 out at Stillwater. For the evening hours, we're looking at a chance of a few isolated showers. The better chance will be coming in again later tonight, but still very mild weather. We'll have more on the forecast and news coming up in just a moment.